Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and here's your quick end of the day, end of the week summary for Friday the 15th. So quadruple witching actually kind of just seemed like a lamb, I guess, today. Just not a little bit of end-of-day action. You could see the volume there in S&P futures right at the end of the day, pretty heavy, especially on these two bars. But I was looking at overall volume for the day. First, just looking at the ETFs, it wasn't really that crazy as I would imagine it would be. I was looking at some of the volume in single stocks too, and yeah, I mean heightened, more than normal, but it certainly wasn't what we've seen the last two quadruple witchings. And again, I'll have to look at all the data, but it didn't look like it was close to what it was last December as well as last September. So much more muted volumes, I would say, than past quadruple witchings. So anyway, let's talk about the overall week. And what I always like to do is review the performance, and then we will we'll do that in sectors and international areas as well. And then we'll look at the technicals and leading into next week. So. This is actually from last week's newsletter, and I just populated the top line here with the 5-day performance and comparing that to last week, where we had a little bit of a relief move back the other way. And, which, again, I've said all along, I thought that was quite normal, what we saw last week. But so what did better? SPYs were up 2.5%. Versus the previous week, down 2.1%. The diamonds underperformed. I think you can probably guess, unless you've been living under a rock. You know that Boeing had some. I was going to say turbulence, but that sounds so stupid. Boeing had a mishap this week, and horrible crash that occurred. But they're a big weight of the Dow. They're 10% of the Dow. They weighed on the Dow all week long. Small caps actually, they had a really rough week the week prior, down 4.2%. They underperformed, and they finished green on the day, but they were really selling off pretty hard in the last hour of the day. Still positive for the week. But again, I think they're important to watch. There'll be something that I'll be watching next week. Then you go to the next one, and maybe the Qs took all the small cap performance because they were up 4.2% for the week. By far and away the the most performance, or the highest performance in terms of the major indices. Sorry, once I get to the end of the week, I start to lose my vocabulary. EM was worse than it normally is. EM was up 3.5%, so big move by emerging markets. That also toppled the previous week's decline. EFA, which we actually saw a pretty big order in that, and I'll go over today's option activity, which is always a little bit challenging to do on a monthly options expiration, because you always see a lot of rolling of positions. All throughout the week you see a lot of rolling of positions. But I think some positions look like either they were add-ons or just outright new long bets. So we'll go over that in just a second. TLT, small, basically flat. Same thing with gold. Which was flat as well. They were both the previous week up, which I said, if you remember from last Friday's video, I said, these things need to climb a little bit. They were underperformers for probably, 3-4 weeks. So let's bring up, so this is what I said in the previous newsletter, and granted so again, everything else is from last week's newsletter. I have not written this week's. That's what I plan to do on the weekend. And if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, go ahead and you can either email me or just sign up on the website, and this way you can get a hold of this week's newsletter. My goodness, I did not, obviously, I can't take every trade that we mentioned in the weekend newsletter, but really, this was pretty amazing. I'm usually not this on, but I had talked about, and I had sent this out to members probably Thursday of, not this week, but the last week. I said, hey, I've kind of made it my MO to buy these software names when they dip. And we got the dip, and I really kind of loaded the boat on a bunch of different names in the beginning. Well, I was doing that not this week, but the previous week into the weakness, and I really got rewarded. I had one of my best weeks of the year, I think, all said and done. Oh, look at this IGV. So that's probably a little bit of quadruple witching right there. But let's go to the Dale. I mean, you could see this is where we were a week ago, and perfect value area. I'll give one of my colleagues, Webb Begol, really a pat on the back because he's developed this indicator. So here's where we were. I said watch for the support last Friday, and we've gone all the way through value area. So if you're if you traded these names with me, I don't want to be greedy, and just like the whole group kind of went to the top of value and returned to 52-week highs, it's a great place to take profits, and that's what I did all day, all week long after after buying that dip in the software space and the SaaS names, as everybody's calling them now. That worked really well. But cyber, I mean, you just go through some of these names that were on the list. All of these names. I did not trade this one. I missed cyber as well. Paycom went to the top of value. Cyber, I mean, did not give you much of a chance. This was the top of value that this came into. What else do we have in the newsletter? We had Twilio. Look at Twilio. I had sent this out on Twitter too, and I said watch these two names, the two T's, the Twilio and the team, and I thought they were both setting up to go higher, and they both exploded higher. Twilio went from 115 to 129. Team went from 102 to 110. I mean, that's a really nice move for a week and a great place. You could see it's consolidating here. So who knows? Not what I would be looking for, considering I've taken profits in the majority of these trades. I would be looking for this to check back to the top of value. And then I will do the same thing. I'll be buying the dip again. So it's the whole rinse and repeat. Especially if you're trading options, you can't own options forever, right? Options do not. I say this. This is one of my patented sayings. Options do not get better with age, right? I mean, they don't age like a fine wine, right? You've got to be pretty quick and nimble with options, swing trading, and then maneuver out. You could do a whole bunch of maneuvers like rolling out and up. That's what a lot of professional traders do, institutional traders do. But that's all part of the game. And then I said I basically watch these names as well. So really, really strong group. Let's go to. I did update the sector performers, and I don't think that I have IGV in this lump. Let's see what IGV did. Oh, I do have it. It was up 3.2%. So as nice as that move was, there was other names that did better. I think a lot of people are starting to get excited about oil and gas names, so energy names. Those were up 6%. OIH was up 5.7%. I had a trade about a week ago that I got stopped out of, and I was like happy with the stop that I took, and sure enough, it's up 5.7%. The semis were absolutely huge today. A lot of stuff going on there. Broadcom had big earnings beat, and then other names like Lam Research and Applied Materials. So I'll look at that chart too in a second. But look at the tech. Remember, we saw right in the beginning of the week a lot of XLK calls being bought. Remember, Microsoft is now the biggest weight in the Qs, I think in XLK as well, the Qs as well as spiders as well. So Microsoft all-time highs. I didn't see where it closed, but all-time highs. Even the internet stocks, which the FANG stocks have been a little bit weak this year relative to how they've been in years past, but they had a good week as well. The Chinese internets, so pretty much risk on, I would say, if you look at these. The complete opposite of the previous week. What didn't perform? The gold miners, which were on the top of the list the previous week. Utilities were still up 1%. Defense names, ITA, which I think Boeing is in there, so that could be the reason for that, as well as industrials. Boeing's a big chunk of that, I think around 10% weight. Then if you look at the international performers, look at India. It was up 6% for the week. I kept seeing that. I send out the performance every day of the overnight markets, but India really came back very nicely from that incident that they had a couple weeks ago. Brazil was even up 5% for the week too. Greece, so pretty much risk on there as well. Look at even the European financials. Greece, so really strong. Remember I talked about that Italy inflow last week. Big inflow there. But yeah, I mean, you don't even see, there's only Nigeria that was down 1%, if you could believe that. So really strong performance. And I was watching Europe, which I know, a lot of people who are day trading and swing trading in the U.S., I know that they look at international probably last, or probably one of the things last on their list. But look at what look at what Europe did today. I mean, I think this got pushed back a little bit into people's priority list. But look at the Euro stocks at 1.3%. This is really what you want to see, I think, too. You don't want to see the U.S., even if you are just a U.S. investor where you're only in trading tech stocks or whatever or anything in the U.S., but you want the rest of the world. You want good world breadth. And I think that's what we have right now. So the reasons behind that, you can make arguments, and I'm not here to kind of talk about debt levels and, the economics are continuing to be weak globally, but it seems like we've got some. I think it comes back down to central banks, and they're pumping liquidity into the system. And right now, I don't think you want to fight the Fed. So let's go to the S&P, and we'll kind of wrap this week's video up. But so my plan, so what, as I'm bringing up the weekly chart, which I'm going to start with the S&P futures. What I like to do on Fridays is always reduce risk, especially when you've had such a strong week as we just went over that performance, because we don't, right? That's already happened. That's this week's performance, which was amazing. Now we need to concentrate on next week, and we've got a Fed meeting next week. The VIX closed at a 12. Believe it or not, the VIX closed at a 1288. So comparatively to, I think last week we hit what, a 1718 in the VIX. So just a complete opposite move. And so the weekly chart, we're through that resistance level, 2816. We closed above value. I cannot believe it. So keeping with the trend and staying with the trend. Last week, the weekly bar didn't really tell you much at all. And, again, I'll bring up Webb's name again. We were having drinks last Friday, and I said, hey, I think we might be okay because we really just fell into support. So, while everybody was looking at this line down here, drawing a line in here, this was the value area. So, again, value area is one standard deviation of price action from the previous month. And I'll tell you, again, if he watches this video, he's going to get a big head. But, this has really helped me a lot to say, and kind of helped me add risk to the end of last week when not many people were doing it, because I thought we just fell right into support. So that's last week. That's enough of the patting one's own back. So now we have to kind of watch, what we're going to do for next week. There's nothing here that tells me there's a sell signal, other than to kind of be careful a little bit because the VIX is at a really low level and we've got some events next week. But the technicals, maybe the small caps being a little bit weak, maybe transports being a little bit weak. There's always concerns, right? That'll get you a little bit spooked. But there's really not much. I mean, how great would this be too, right? I mean, the Qs are breaking out of value. They also, by the way, if you go to the weekly chart, they're also above value too. So how great would it be? And if you're super long, you may not want to hear this, but I've reduced a lot of exposure, and that's just the rinse and repeat type of option swing trading. If you've been option swing trading for a while, you probably know what I'm talking about. You take profits when we have a really good week, and then you kind of rest a little bit and wait for your next pullback. But how great would it be if we pulled back into here and then did one of these? So that's in the cards. We could, of course, keep going straight up too, because I think the pain trade continues to be higher, right? You turn on the financial media and there's all these reasons why everybody says that we should be going lower. So people are not all in this market. Everybody's doubting, has been doubting every step of the way since December, right? I talked about that. I sent a couple nasty, not nasty tweets out last Friday, but I was watching the Fast Money show and how everybody was super bearish. And I'm like, that's not, first of all, that's, if you've been wrong for the last 2 months and you still think that we're going lower, right? This is probably another good thing that you want to hear if you're bullish, because there's still a lot of people, those last bears who have been doubting the move all the way up, are not in. Once they throw in the towel, that might be another area, another psychological area where you could basically say, or sentiment reason to take profits. So listen, I'm still long this market, but I'm really pared back risk into strength. So that's again much better than paring back risk because you're breaking support. So I think we'll leave it there for the week. But again, I'll have a ton of things to write about. Maybe looking at some different sectors. Oh, the I wanted to mention just the semiconductors. Just another. So yeah, so transport's not so good. But the semiconductors, look at what they're doing, and one level to watch, but on two charts, right? So if you scale out, there's a version point of control up here. Notice how this matched this one as well, right at 110. So if you look at where this lines up on the weekly chart, that 109.66 is the top of value, which is another couple percent up. So let's say again another scenario that we could have next week is maybe these semis have an inside week. How great would that be to kind of add more to the semis names after some really nice earnings from Broadcom. So I'll leave it there. Again, reach out to me. Happy to get you involved this weekend so you can get ready for the trading week. Again, I do a lot of my research when the market is closed. And I am happy to provide that service to members where I go ahead and research the market, not while it's open. Then when the market's open, I'm reading the tape. But while the market is closed, and I'll show you some of today's option activity. I mentioned big EFA trade that went up. Let's just look at this chart. I know I said I'd cut the video. April 12th. This is about, I think, $2 million of premium. Let's just look at the chart of EFA. It is now inside value for the year. Look at that. Look at that. I did not take this trade because I just didn't want to add risk today. But wow, that is interesting. Above the 200-day moving average. So a whole bunch of fun things to look at. And also we saw big FXI call spread. I did take this trade. I'll show you the trade and how it looked. I think there were 60,000 contracts in the China ETF. This was the 45.5, 47 call spread that went up. You see right on the top of the thing. So that lines up really well with that. I took this trade for, I think it was 36 cents to possibly make $1.50. I like the risk return in that. So we'll leave it there. Again, hit me on email and you can get involved with the Tribeca Trade Group. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend and have a great St. Patty's Day.